for staying with us. Now, today is International Drug Awareness Day, and those who help people to break the cycle of addiction say the lockdown has impacted substance use. One of South Africa's longest-running NGOs, eNCA, is celebrating 66 years of providing services to substance abusers in the Western Cape. It's calling for new research to understand how socioeconomic factors are fueling drug addiction. Lindsay Dentlinger filed this report.
Their substance abuse journeys have all been very different. But one thing these recovering addicts have in common is the will to live better lives for themselves and those who depend on them. For 17 years, Mark Klink used drugs to fill the void of love, self-confidence and self-worth. Now, despite the hard life lessons, he doesn't ever feel like using again.
I'd always associated drugs with happiness and euphoria. But at the end of that, it was no longer happiness, it was a sickness, and I had seen it as a sickness. And because I made the shift in my mind, and also I remember telling myself that, I was using drugs to run away from pain, but really I was producing more pain. And when I was able to see that it was then more worthwhile to go through the suffering of like sobriety, and facing my troubles and facing life's difficulties sober than it was to deal with it in a way of like using.
Tracy Lee Viljoen started using drugs on her 16th birthday. She says the path to getting help starts with self-realization.
Something happened, an event happened that is so hurtful or painful to your family members or to yourself, you realize that this is not right. But however, because it's an illness, you don't know how to control it. You think you have control, but you don't. So eventually, you have to tell yourself, if you really want to help yourself, you have to tell yourself that you need someone else to help you. Everything, but if they don't have love, and if they don't have...
Taryn Harris says she thought she had her life as a functioning alcoholic under control, until one day she got called out on her behavior.
I mean, I was betraying everyone, and I felt like that's what really pushed me to come here. It was like, I felt like a bit, like just an evil, like I was just walking around deceiving everyone, like I was a joke, like I was walking around like acting like my life wasn't real, because I was walking when nobody was knowing. I was sitting in the bathroom pretending to have constipation issues, just to spend longer time in the loo. And I was sitting there doing that, and if my kids had to know, that would be so, like exactly how you said, how do you explain to your children, how do you teach them anything?
eNCA says because the lockdown impacted access to rehabilitation services, it gave rise to clients presenting with a dual diagnosis when they were able to seek help again.
Those that suffers from either schizophrenia or bipolar, they struggled quite a bit because, if you can recall, there was restrictions on cigarettes and alcohol. So they had to find means, and that definitely kind of put them back in terms of their treatment recovery process.
eNCA Regional Director Brad Mears says the impact COVID has had on joblessness and homelessness has fueled drug addiction in the Western Cape.
But I think that we're also not necessarily at tackling the epidemic strategically enough. So, the psychosocial support that we're able to provide the community is absolutely critical. However, we need to be adopting other approaches as well in looking at the economic drivers of what are causing addiction. Because we could double the number of social workers and we would probably double the output of clients that are successfully treated. But what we also need to be looking at is how do we stop new clients from coming in at the beginning, because that's just an indication of how the system has failed people. So it's a failed education system, it's a failed support networks, it's failed employment creation opportunities. So, and because of those failures, people end up at our door. So in a way, what we should be doing is going right back to the beginning and looking at prevention, intervening early with young children.
eNCA says more research is needed in the post-COVID era to understand the new dynamics of drug addiction. Lindsay Dentlinger, Cape Town.